a set of points to describe impartiality. So where the points were like here, 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 and here. You could have an underestimate and an overestimate. You made two sets of rectangles. Do you remember that, everybody? Made two sets of rectangles. And what does that red area represent right here? What does the red area represent? The air, yeah. So if you had the big rectangle, that would be the difference between the lower and the upper, right? The lower and the upper, the difference between the lower and the upper. So if you add those together, basically you take these four and you slide them over. What does this represent overall? The overall difference between the lower bound and the upper bound, the overall distance. And as you take more divisions, as n increases, so what's the n value here?
1.
The delta, the n is 4. There are 4 divisions. N is 4. See divisions of 4 divisions? As you make more divisions, what happens to the error bound? It becomes less, right? So as you make more divisions, the upper bound gets lower and the lower bound gets higher, and they get closer together. So what happens to this? This thing right here gets smaller. And it doesn't get smaller because it changes in height. The height here stays the same. What changes right here? The delta changes. As you add in more, what's the delta here? What's the delta t? What's the delta t? 1. As you add in more, if I changed n to 8, n is 4 here. If I changed n to 8, what would the delta be? If I changed n to 8, what would the delta t be? 0.5, exactly. The height would be the same. So what's the height? 48 to 20? What's 48 minus 20? 28. So right now, the error is 28 times 1, right? If I change the n to 8, it would be 28 times 0.5, which would be 14, right? 28 times 0.5 is 14, so it's going down. So the more divisions you have, the error goes down, the maximum range here. So we have the distance right there. So I just said, if I changed n to 8, everybody, if I changed n to 8, the delta t changed to what? About 0.5. So it would be 0.5 times 28. So I could ask you this question. How frequently must the velocity be recorded in order for the lower and upper estimates to be within 5 feet of each other? So if I changed it to 8, how close were they? What was the final answer if I changed it to 8? What was the difference? 14. So this one is saying, what do I need to change it to? What's the n value? How frequently must the velocity be recorded in order for the lower and upper estimates to be within 5 feet of each other? See if you can figure that out. What should it be? What should it be? So which part of this rectangle doesn't change right there? The red rectangle right there. What part doesn't change? The height, right. So it's still going to be 20 to 48, right? So we know that we're going to need, and I should probably turn off the highlighter to draw, 48 minus 20, right, times something. We want it to equal what? We want it to equal 5, right? So what do we have here? That is going to be 5 over 28. So we know that the width has to be 5 over 28. The width. So we want the delta t to be 5 over 28. That's the width. How do we figure out how many divisions that is, though? You're going from 0 all the way to what? 4. And each width is going to be how wide? You really don't want that. How wide is each width going to be for these rectangles? 5 over what? 5 over 24, right? Was it 5 over 24? 28, thank you. 5 over 28, thank you. 5 over what? 28. So we want 5 over 28, 5 over 28, 5 over 28. So we want to figure out how many divisions that is. How do we figure out how many divisions that is?
Divide that 4 by that.
Yeah, so you'd have the total width, which is going to be b minus a over the delta t. So what's that going to be? 4 minus 0 all over what?
5 over 28.
28, which is what? 28 over 5 times what? 4. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what do we end up with there? 80 plus 32 is what? You can do it, guys. 4 times 20 is 80. 80 plus 32 is, you got it, 112. So 112 over 5. That might seem like an annoying number to get because it says how frequently must the velocity be recorded? Well, we could say it needs to be recorded every, how frequently? The answer to how frequently would be every what? every 5 over 28 seconds, right? But I asked you, I made it a little bit deeper. I said, how many divisions would you need? How many divisions would you need? And what's interesting is that a whole number, 112 over 5? It's not. What is that closest to? What does that come out to be?
22.
22.4, right? So the point is, if you have an even number of divisions and you set it at 5 over 28, it's not going to divide evenly. So if you wanted it to be like less than 5, maybe your division should be, you would round up or down if you wanted it to be less than 5. Would you want to round the divisions up or down in this case? You want to make the estimate better, so what do you want to do? You go up, right. So if I said at least how many divisions would you need, you would say 20, well, you need 23, because if you had 22, it would be greater than 5 feet, right? Because less divisions means the error is greater. So if I said how frequently, the answer to how frequently would be 5 over 28. Exciting. What does this represent the area of? This right here. Because what's the distance from here to here? F of B minus what? F of A. And the base is delta t. So if you want the area of a rectangle, it's just f of b minus f of a over delta t. Now here's the thing. Why is there an absolute value sign there? Why are those absolute value signs there?
Because B can't be
What?
anything.